There is an episode of The Simpsons where God tells Homer Simpson he has 6 months to live, and Homer hears it as a scheduling note. There is an episode where a 1-year-old shoots a man, and the show turns it into a summer game show. There is an episode where Homer reads a letter from his daughter telling him she needs him to stay smart, sets the letter on the kitchen table, and goes to get the surgery that makes him forget how to understand her. The Simpsons ran for 12 seasons before most people realized the show had been telling a completely different story underneath the one everyone was laughing at. Not in the Halloween episodes, not in the dark jokes, in the regular ones, the family ones, the ones that ended with the couch gag and the reset button and everyone fine. They were not all fine. Welcome to Yellow Fan. We are going through one season at a time, and we are not looking away. Season 1. The Babysitter Who Got Away. There is a moment near the end of the very first season of The Simpsons where Homer Simpson loads a criminal's suitcases into her car, hands her triple pay, and waves goodbye while his 3 children watch in silent disbelief. The police pull up seconds after she drives away. A reporter tells Homer what he just did. Homer lies to the cameras to save face. Marge looks at her 3 children, the same children who had just been tied up and left on a couch by a wanted fugitive, and says with genuine warmth that if you raise kids who can knock out and hogtie a perfect stranger, you must be doing something right. The credits roll. The family is fine. Nobody is arrested. Nobody is punished. The show moves on. That is how the first season of The Simpsons ends. Not with a bang, not with a lesson, but with a dangerous woman escaping into the night, while the family responsible for her escape congratulates itself. The episode is called Some Enchanted Evening. It aired on May 13th, 1990 as the season 1 finale. What most people do not know is that it was also the very first episode ever produced. It was supposed to be the pilot, the first thing anyone ever saw of The Simpsons. The animation came back from Korea so badly done that the producers nearly shut the whole show down. Matt Groening and the production team had to delay it, fix it, and air a Christmas special in its place just to buy time. By the time Some Enchanted Evening finally aired, 5 months of other episodes had already run. The audience had already met The Simpsons. They already cared about them. Which means that the episode designed to introduce us to this family, to show us exactly who these people are and how this world works, ended up being the episode that closed the first chapter instead. And what it showed us, in that closing chapter, was something the show would spend the next decade quietly building on. Springfield is a world where the wrong people win. Harm bounces off the powerful and lands on the powerless. And the family at the center of it all survives not because they are good or smart or careful, but because they are lucky, and because the show is a cartoon, and luck is the one resource Springfield never runs out of. Let us go back to the beginning of that episode, not the end. Homer is being thoughtless at breakfast. The family storms out, leaving Marge with a pile of dishes and no help. She is so lonely that she calls a radio psychiatrist named Dr. Marvin Monroe and confesses on live air that her husband makes her feel invisible. Homer hears this at work. He is embarrassed enough to want to do something about it. So he calls a babysitting agency and books a night out for the 2 of them. The babysitting agency does not want to help him. The reputation of the Simpson children is so bad that the agency's receptionist refuses the moment she hears the name Simpson. Homer has to lie, giving the fake last name Sampson just to get anyone to agree to come. This is the first dark detail the episode plants and then forgets about. The people professionally trained to care for children think this particular family's children are so uncontrollable that they require deception just to get coverage. Homer gets around this by pretending to be someone else. The agency, believing they are sending their sitter to a normal home, sends Lucille Botzkowski. Lucille Botzkowski is the babysitter bandit. She has a featured segment on a show called America's Most Armed and Dangerous. She robs houses. She ties up the children. She cuts phone lines. The agency did not know this, but the point is that Homer's lie is what put her in the house. Without the fake name, no sitter comes. Without the sitter, the whole night falls apart. Homer's dishonesty is what brings a wanted criminal into his home. The show does not make this connection explicitly. It moves too fast, but it is there. Bart and Lisa are watching television, a cartoon about happy little elves that Bart hates with every cell of his body. While Ms. Botts puts Maggie to bed, Bart, being Bart, changes the channel. He lands on America's Most armed and dangerous, right at the moment they are showing Miss Botts' face. The babysitter bandit. Her photo is on the screen. She walks into the room holding a rope. What follows is genuinely dark in a way that early Simpsons rarely allowed itself to be. She chases Bart into the basement. She catches Lisa on the phone to the hotline and grabs her by the cord. She ties both of them up on the couch, gags Bart's mouth with tape, and ransacks the house while they sit helpless. She cuts the telephone lines so they cannot call for help. The only reason the children survive is Maggie. 1-year-old Maggie wakes up, climbs out of her crib, toddles past Miss Botts as she is actively robbing the house, finds her tied up siblings, watches the Happy Little Elves video that Lisa promises to play again if Maggie unties her, and unties her. A baby saves the day because a toddler wanted to watch cartoons. Bart and Lisa knock Miss Botts out with a blunt object. They tie her up, they call the police. They are heroes. Homer and Marge come home. Homer sees Miss Botts bound and gagged. He assumes Bart has been causing trouble again. He is so deep in his assumption that Bart is always the problem that he physically grabs his son to scold him before a reporter has a chance to explain. When the reporter does explain, Homer has already untied the babysitter bandit and helped her carry her suitcases, stuffed with the family's stolen possessions, to her car. He has paid her 3 times her rate. She is gone. Ms. Botts drives away. The police find Homer. A television reporter identifies Homer on the news as a local boob. Homer lies and says he fought her before she escaped, which his own children immediately contradict. Then Marge says the line about raising children who can hog-tie a stranger. The family laughs. The credits roll. There is a specific kind of darkness that is harder to see than the obvious kind. The babysitter bandit robbing a house and tying up children is easy to label as dark. Anyone can see that. But the darkness that the episode is actually sitting in is subtler and more honest than that. Homer lied to get a sitter. The lie brought a criminal into the home. The criminal tied up his children. His children rescued themselves. Then Homer came home and accidentally freed the criminal and helped her escape. Then Marge reframed the whole thing, the children being tied up by a wanted felon, as evidence of good parenting. Every adult in this story failed completely. The children survived entirely on their own, and the family's response to learning this is to feel good about it. This is the moral logic of Springfield stated in its clearest possible form, right at the end of the very first season. Children are more competent than adults. Adults cause the problems. Adults escape the consequences. The family unit resets, decides it is fine, and continues. The babysitter bandit is never mentioned again. She was never caught. She drove away with the Simpsons' possessions and has been somewhere out there in the Springfield universe ever since. The show simply moved on, the way Springfield always moves on, because in this world, the reset button is the only button anyone ever presses. The episode was written by Matt Groening and Sam Simon. These are the 2 men most responsible for the DNA of the show. This was the episode they chose to make first. Not a warm introduction, not a funny family moment, but a story about parental negligence, a dangerous intruder, children who save themselves, and a family that looks at all of this and decides to feel proud. That is not an accident. Groening and Simon were building something. The comedy is real and the laughs are real, but underneath all of it, from the very first episode ever produced, there is a show that is deeply, quietly pessimistic about adults, about parents specifically, about the gap between what parents think they are doing and what is actually happening in their homes. Homer does not know what is happening in his own house. He never does. He does not know his babysitter is a criminal. He does not know his children are in danger. He does not know that Maggie, at 1 year old, is the most functional person in the building. He comes home, makes everything worse in one smooth motion, lies about it, and then accepts his wife's generous reframe as the truth. And the show watches all of this happen. It does not intervene. It does not correct Homer. It does not show Miss Botts getting caught. It does not give Bart and Lisa the recognition they deserve. It just ends. The family is together. They are laughing. The criminal is gone. There is something about the way the episode ends on that happy note, Marge's line, the laugh track, the credits, that is more unsettling than anything Miss Botts actually did. Because the babysitter bandit was always going to be gone by the end of the episode. She was a guest villain. What stays is Homer. What stays is the pattern. The negligence that brought her there does not leave when she does. The show was supposed to introduce us to this family with this episode. Instead, it closed the first chapter with it. And what that first chapter said in its final moments was this: the children of Springfield are on their own. The adults will reset and feel fine. And somewhere out there, the wrong people are still getting away. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. That is the theory Season 1 plants in the ground and leaves there. But Season 1's version of this darkness is relatively clean. There is a villain, a crisis, a resolution, and a reset. What Season 2 does is remove the villain entirely. There is no criminal in the Season 2 episode that keeps people awake at night. There is only Homer, a bad piece of fish, and 22 hours to find out what kind of man he actually is. Section 2, Season 2, The Man Who Learned Nothing. There is a scene near the end of Season 2 where Homer Simpson sits alone in his armchair at midnight, listening to Larry King read the Bible on tape, waiting to die. The house is quiet. Everyone else is asleep. He has already said goodbye to the kids. He already made love to Marge. He already had his last drink at Moe's. He already told off Mr. Burns, which he had apparently wanted to do for years. He already taught Bart to shave, even though Bart is 10 and has nothing to shave. He already sat with his father, which took so long it ate up most of the afternoon and forced him to skip half the list. He has done everything he could do. Now he is just sitting. Larry King reads. Homer listens. The clock ticks toward midnight. His head drops. This is not a Treehouse of Horror episode. This is not a dream sequence. This is a regular episode of The Simpsons, airing in January of 1991, in which the main character of the show genuinely prepares to die, and the show plays it completely straight. The episode is called One Fish, Two Fish, Blowfish, Bluefish. It is Season 2, Episode 11. It is one of the most emotionally honest things the show ever made. And the ending, the real ending, not the fake out, is one of the cruelest jokes in the show's history, delivered so quietly that most people watching it probably smiled instead of flinching. Here is what happens from the beginning. Lisa is tired of the family eating the same things every week. Marge tries. Pork chop night is pork chop night. Homer is happy with pork chops, but Lisa pushes, and the family agrees to go out somewhere different, and they end up at a Japanese restaurant called the Happy Sumo. Homer is immediately suspicious of everything and hungry in that aggressive way Homer is hungry, which is to say that his hunger becomes everyone else's problem almost immediately. He works his way through the menu. He tries things he has never tried. He is actually enjoying himself. Then he orders fugu, a dish made from blowfish, which is one of the most dangerous fish in the world to prepare. If it is cut incorrectly, the poison in the fish is not removed properly, and the person eating it will die. The head chef at the Happy Sumo knows exactly how to cut fugu. He is a master at it. But he is not in the kitchen when Homer orders. He is in the back room having relations with Edna Krabappel, Springfield Elementary's 4th grade teacher. One of his students tries to get him to come out and cut the fish. He tells the student to go away. so the student has to cut it himself. Homer, meanwhile, is at his table being loud and impatient, shouting that he wants his food, which startles the student mid-cut and forces him to rush. The student serves Homer the fugu quickly and sloppily. Homer eats it and thinks it is wonderful. Then the head chef comes back, sees what happened, walks out to the dining room, and tells Homer that he may have been poisoned. Homer ends up in the hospital. Dr. Hibbert sits across from him with an expression that contains no good news. He tells Homer that fugu poison, if it was present in the fish, works on a very specific timeline. Homer may have 24 hours. He starts the meeting by announcing that a little death anxiety is normal, and that Homer can expect to go through 5 stages. He lists them: denial, anger, fear, bargaining, acceptance. Homer goes through all 5 in about 10 seconds. Dr. Hibbert stares at him. He says, "Mr. Simpson, your progress astounds me." Homer goes home. He does not tell the kids. He does not want to frighten them. He makes a list of everything he wants to do before he dies. It is a long list. He knows immediately that he will not get through all of it. He oversleeps the next morning and loses hours right at the start. He is already behind on his own death. What follows is the emotional spine of the episode, and the reason it still lands the way it does more than 30 years later. Homer moves through his list with a kind of quiet determination the show almost never gives him. He is not funny. He is not stupid. He is not bumbling. He is a man who has spent most of his life not paying attention to the people around him, and who now has approximately 22 hours left, and who is trying, in the time remaining, to actually show up. He teaches Bart to shave. Bart does not need to shave. Neither of them mentions this. It does not matter. What matters is that Homer sat with his son, face to face, and showed him something. Bart is 10 years old, and will stay 10 years old forever. And this is one of the handful of times the show puts them in a room together and makes it feel real. He listens to Lisa play her saxophone. He sits and actually listens. This is notable because Homer's relationship with Lisa's saxophone throughout the series is mostly one of annoyance. The instrument is loud. It gets in the way. He has, across multiple episodes, tried to get her to stop playing. In this episode, he sits down and listens to the whole thing and does not say a word, and means it. He films a video for Maggie. He is speaking to her from beyond the grave, he says. He makes a ghost noise to be funny. Then he gets serious. He tells her he is a simple man, a kind man, a gentleman who loved his children. Then the phone rings. It is Milhouse, calling for Bart. Homer shouts for Bart to come to the phone. The moment is gone. He never finishes the video. He reconciles with his father. This takes most of the afternoon, far longer than Homer planned, because Abe Simpson is Abe Simpson, and their relationship has decades of unresolved weight in it, and neither of them is particularly good at saying what they mean. It is real. It is awkward. It takes too long. Homer loses time he needed for other things. He does not get everything on the list done because of it. He did it anyway. He tells off Mr. Burns. He goes to Moe's for one last drink with his friends. He misses family dinner. He rushes home to say goodbye to the kids and to be with Marge. Then midnight comes. He gets out of bed. He goes to each sleeping family member. Bart, Lisa, Maggie. He looks at them. He does not wake them. He goes back to the living room and sits in the chair and puts on the Bible tape and waits. His head drops. Marge wakes up in the morning and Homer is not in bed. She comes downstairs. She sees Homer slumped in the armchair, motionless. She sits down in front of him. She touches something near his face. His drool. It is warm. He is alive. The poison was either not in the fish, or not enough of it, or his body handled it somehow. Dr. Hibbert, it turns out, does not actually know how to diagnose fugu poisoning and essentially guessed. Homer never had 22 hours to live in a medically certain sense. He had 22 hours of believing he was going to die. Marge wakes him up. He is overjoyed. He bounces around the house. He makes a promise, loudly and clearly, that from this day forward he will live life to its fullest. He learned something. The experience changed him. He is a different man now. Then the credits roll, and underneath the credits, as the theme music plays, there is a final scene. It is brief. Homer is on the couch. He is watching a professional bowling tournament on television. He is eating a bag of pork rinds. He is laughing at something on the screen. He is fine. He is exactly where he started. The writers of this episode, including Nell Scovell, who wrote the script, built that ending deliberately. It is not a mistake. It is not the show forgetting what just happened. The bowling tournament and the pork rinds are the point. They are the answer to everything the episode spent 22 minutes asking. Homer had 22 hours during which he was, by most measures, a genuinely good father and husband. He showed up. He sat still. He listened. He filmed a video for his daughter and got interrupted before he could finish it. He reconciled with his father even though it cost him time he did not have. He said goodbye to sleeping children who did not know he was saying goodbye. And then he found out he was not dying, and within what appears to be a single day, he is back on the couch eating pork rinds. The show does not comment on this. Marge does not come in and ask him what happened to his promise. The kids do not notice anything different. The world does not register that a man who spent a day being his best self has returned to being his default self. Springfield just continues. The couch is where it always was. The bowling tournament is on. What makes this dark is not that Homer reverts. People revert. That is a real and human thing that happens. The darkness is in the specificity of what he reverts from. He did not have a vague spiritual awakening. He sat with his dying father for hours, losing precious time because their relationship mattered more than finishing his list. He filmed a message for a baby who will not watch it for years, speaking honestly about who he is. He listened to his daughter play. Those things happened. They were real within the episode. And then he goes back to the couch. There is a reading of this ending that is generous to Homer. Maybe the bowling tournament is living life to its fullest, by his standards. If Homer loves bowling and pork rinds, then watching a bowling tournament and eating pork rinds is Homer being exactly who he wants to be. The show might be saying that Homer did learn something. He learned that what he actually wants is the couch, and now he has it consciously rather than by default. The other reading is darker and more honest. Homer spent 22 hours discovering what it feels like to matter to the people around you. He found out that mattering is uncomfortable and time-consuming and requires you to sit with your father longer than you planned and miss dinner with your wife. He found out that the video for Maggie gets interrupted by a phone call from Milhouse. He found out that reconciling with your father takes most of a day and leaves you with less time for everything else. He found all of this out and then, when the threat was removed, chose the bowling tournament. The bucket list is still somewhere in the house. The video for Maggie, unfinished, probably on a VHS tape in a drawer. The saxophone Lisa played while her father actually listened. She will play it again, and he will not listen the same way. The shaving lesson Bart does not need yet. When Bart does need it, Homer will have forgotten he already gave one. The episode is not about death. It is about what a person looks like when they believe death is coming, and what that tells you about what they are when it is not. Homer Simpson, facing the end, is a good man. Homer Simpson, at the end of the episode, having survived, is watching bowling. The show never brings this up again. No episode references it. No character mentions it. The list is gone. The promise to live life to its fullest disappears as completely as Miss Botts disappeared into the night at the end of season 1. In Springfield, the reset button is the only button. Every revelation is temporary. Every change is cosmetic. The couch is always there. And that is the darkest thing about season 2's most emotionally precise episode. Not that Homer almost died. Not that he made a list and could not finish it. Not that his father took too long and used up all the time, but that the man who sat alone at midnight with the Bible on tape, prepared to leave quietly, is the same man eating pork rinds on the couch before the episode is even over. Homer learned what his life was worth during those 22 hours. Then he learned he was not dying. Then he forgot. __quote_1__. Season 2 gave us a Homer who saw himself clearly for one day and then chose not to. Season 3 goes somewhere completely different. It takes a character nobody thought to look at carefully, the clown Bart has worshipped his whole life, and reveals that behind the makeup and the horn and the fake laugh is a man who has been performing the same apology to his father for 25 years in front of millions of children, and his father never came to see the show. Section 3, Season 3, The Clown Who Never Stopped Apologizing. There is a moment in Season 3 where Krusty the Clown is sitting at the Simpsons dinner table, watching an itchy and scratchy cartoon with the family. The cartoon is about a father and son playing together. Krusty watches it. His eyes slowly turn red. His voice gets quieter. He looks at the screen and says, almost to himself, "Didn't Itchy Jr. look happy playing with his father? And didn't Scratchy Jr. look happy playing with his dad until they got run over by a thresher? Wasn't that a beautiful cartoon?" Then he breaks down completely. He is sobbing at a children's cartoon about a mouse and a cat at a family dinner in front of people he barely knows, and he cannot stop. He looks at the camera and through tears says, "For the love of God, cut to a commercial!" This is not a Treehouse of Horror episode. This is not a dream. This is Krusty the Clown, the most famous entertainer in Springfield, the man whose face is on every lunchbox and whose show has run for decades, crying at dinner because a cartoon reminded him of a father who has not spoken to him in 25 years. The episode is called Like Father, Like Clown. It is Season 3, Episode 6. It aired October 24th, 1991. It is the episode that established everything we know about who Krusty actually is underneath the makeup, and what it revealed was not funny at all. Here is the setup. Krusty had promised Bart a thank you dinner. Bart had helped clear Krusty's name during a robbery charge in Season 1, and Krusty had never properly repaid him. He keeps canceling. He cancels so many times that Bart writes him a letter saying he has lost faith in him. Krusty's secretary, a woman named Lois Pennycandy, is so moved by the letter that she threatens to quit if Krusty does not honor his word. So Krusty shows up, reluctantly, for dinner at the Simpsons' house. The family asks him to say grace before the meal. Krusty starts speaking in Hebrew, a blessing recited quietly and from memory in a language he has clearly known since childhood and has not spoken out loud in a very long time. Lisa recognizes it immediately. She knows he is Jewish. She mentions his heritage gently, carefully, the way Lisa mentions things she can see are delicate. Krusty breaks down. He tells them his real name, Herschel Kristofsky. He grew up in the Lower East Side of Springfield. His father is a rabbi named Hyman Kristofsky, a man of considerable standing in the Jewish community. His father always wanted Krusty to follow in his footsteps, become a rabbi, carry on the family legacy. Herschel had other plans. From the time he was small, Herschel wanted to make people laugh. He practiced comedy in the bathroom. He told jokes in class. He made the other students crack up. None of this pleased his father. In a flashback, Krusty's father drags him away from a joke shop window and strangles him after he tells a joke in class. A physical reaction the episode plays briefly and without much comment, in the same casual way the show plays Homer strangling Bart, which is its own dark conversation for another time. Then comes the night that ended everything. Krusty got a chance to perform at a rabbi's convention. He thought it was going well. It was going well. The crowd was responding. He was doing what he was born to do, in front of an audience, getting the reaction he had always wanted. Then one of the rabbis hit him with a seltzer bottle. The water washed over his face. The clown makeup came off. And in the audience, his father saw his son's real face for the first time in what might have been years. Rabbi Kristofsky stood up and disowned his son in front of an entire room of religious leaders. They have not spoken since. 25 years of silence, during which Herschel Kristofsky became Krusty the Clown, became the most beloved children's entertainer in Springfield, won a Grammy with a barbershop quartet called the B Sharps, performed for millions of children, and never once, in all of that time, received a single word from his father. Bart and Lisa decide to fix this. They find Rabbi Kristofsky at Temple Beth Springfield. He welcomes them inside. The moment they mention Krusty, he says he has no son and shuts the door. They try again through a radio program the rabbi co-hosts with Reverend Lovejoy. They try to trick him into a meeting by telling him that the Nobel Prize-winning author Saul Bellow wants to have lunch with him. They tell Krusty he is being given a medal by the French government. Both tricks are discovered immediately. Neither works. Lisa reads Jewish texts looking for passages about forgiveness. She finds them. She brings them to the rabbi. He has a counter-argument for every single one. He is a learned man. He has spent 25 years building a wall out of scripture, and he knows every brick. Bart is the one who finally gets through. He quotes from the autobiography of Sammy Davis Jr., a Jewish entertainer who converted to Judaism and found acceptance in the community despite being a black man in mid-century America. The quote is about looking at the people who are really your family and choosing not to hate them. The rabbi hears this. Something shifts. He recognizes in Sammy Davis Jr., a performer, an entertainer, a Jewish man who lived outside the expected shape of a Jewish life, something that connects to his son. He agrees to see Krusty. They meet on the set of Krusty's live television show. The audience is there, the cameras are rolling. Krusty is in the middle of his broadcast, barely holding it together, doing the job the way he always does the job, with the makeup on and the horn and the performance of a man having the time of his life, while inside he is something else entirely. Then his father walks onto the set. They hug. They reconcile. Rabbi Kristofsky accepts a cream pie from Bart and throws it in his son's face. Krusty laughs. The audience cheers. Moe, watching it on television at the bar, has something in his eye. The episode ends there. The reunion happened. The wall came down. But here's what the episode actually built across those 22 minutes that did not come down with the wall. Krusty cannot read. This is established across multiple episodes and is part of his documented backstory. His father, according to everything the show has shown, never taught him. A man who came from a long line of rabbis, who grew up surrounded by books and learning, grew up unable to read because his father was so focused on Krusty becoming a rabbi that when it became clear he would not, the relationship collapsed before the education was complete. Krusty has a pacemaker, established in Season 1. He has diabetes, confirmed in Season 12. He smokes constantly. He drinks heavily. He has spent decades cycling through addictions, financial disasters, and professional embarrassments. He has a pet monkey named Mr. Teeny, who is one of his closest relationships. He has a daughter he barely knows. He has been married and divorced multiple times. He is, by every observable measure, a man who has never quite figured out how to live outside the job. Matt Groening has said in interviews that his original concept for Krusty was that Krusty was actually Homer in disguise. The idea was that Bart had no respect for his father, but completely worshipped a clown who looked exactly like his father. Groening has said, looking at Krusty now, "Yeah, that is Homer. The two characters have the same build, the same face shape, the same basic physical presence. The joke was meant to be that Bart was worshipping his dad without knowing it, and Homer could not get any respect from his own son, even when his son loved him. The idea was dropped because it was too complicated to set up properly in the rush of early production, but it never fully went away. It lives in the design. It lives in the parallel between Krusty's relationship with his father and Homer's relationship with Abe. It lives in the fact that both men are deeply loved by Bart for reasons Bart cannot fully articulate, and both men are fundamentally incapable of being what the people who love them actually need. The episode was researched with genuine care. 2 rabbis were brought in as consultants, Lavi Meyer and Harold Schulweis. Schulweis was not a fan of the show, but read the script when asked. He said it was profound. He said it had a Jewish resonance to it. He was impressed by what he called its underlying moral seriousness. He made corrections to the religious details, and they were incorporated. The Torah passages quoted in the episode are real passages. The Talmud citations are accurate. The episode is not doing a bit about Jewish religion. It is genuinely engaged with it. Jackie Mason, a Jewish comedian himself, voiced Rabbi Kristofsky. He won an Emmy for it in 1992, the first year the Outstanding Voiceover Performance Award was ever given. Mason won it for a single episode of a cartoon, playing a rabbi who throws a pie at his son on live television, and the performance was so real that it beat every other voice performance that year. Mason died in 2021. His death brought renewed attention to this episode and to the character. People who had watched it as children watched it again and noticed things they had missed the first time. The way the rabbi's face changes in the scene where Bart quotes Sammy Davis Jr., the way Krusty stands on the set of his show, looking like a man standing in front of a firing squad while wearing a funny hat. The way the hug happens not in private, but on camera in front of a live studio audience, because Krusty has lived his entire adult life in front of cameras and does not know how to have a real moment any other way. The dark theory here is not complicated. It is right on the surface of everything the episode shows. Krusty has been doing his show for decades. He films it multiple times a week. He goes out there in the makeup and the costume and the wig and performs happiness and excitement and love for the children in the audience. And somewhere in the back of his mind, behind every single performance, is the night at the rabbi's convention when his father saw his real face and walked away. The makeup came off once and his father disowned him. So he put it back on and he has never taken it off since. Not fully. The makeup is the protection. The clown is the thing that keeps the real face hidden from anyone who might look at it and decide they do not want to see it anymore. He breaks down at a family dinner watching a cartoon about a father and son. He says cut to a commercial because he cannot stop crying, and the cameras might as well be rolling even now, even here, even at a dinner table in a house that is not his. He does not know how to be in a room without performing. He does not know how to feel something without immediately trying to turn it into a show. Bart Simpson, 10 years old, troublemaker, the kid who once put a cherry bomb in the school toilet, figured out in one afternoon what it would take to break through 25 years of silence. He found the right quote from the right man and said it to the right rabbi at the right moment. He did what Krusty could not do for himself. He got the door to open. And Krusty was standing on the other side of it in full costume on a live set with cameras pointed at him, because that is the only place he knows how to stand. The reunion was real. The emotion was real. Jackie Mason played it that way and it earned an Emmy. But the clown makeup was still on. It was always going to stay on. When you have worn a face for 25 years and the face you were born with is the thing that cost you your father, taking it off is not something that gets fixed in 22 minutes. Even with forgiveness, even with a pie in the face, even with the crowd cheering. Herschel Kristofsky got his father back on a television set in front of a studio audience, the way everything in his life has ever happened, on camera, in costume, as a performance. He has never been anything else. Quote 2. Season 3 showed us that the man making Springfield's children laugh has been quietly falling apart for 25 years. Season 4 goes somewhere even stranger. It gives Homer a direct conversation with God, and God tells Homer, almost as a side note, that he needs to wait about 6 months to find out the meaning of life. The reason God gives that specific number turns out to be something the show plants and then never explains out loud, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Section 4, Season 4, God gave Homer 6 months. There is a moment at the very end of a Season 4 episode where Homer Simpson is walking through what appears to be heaven with God, and he asks the question that every person who has ever lived has wanted to ask. He asks what the meaning of life is. God starts to answer. The credits cut him off. The audience never hears the answer. Homer never hears the answer. God was in the middle of a sentence and the show ended and that was it. The meaning of life started and never finished, gone before it could land. Most people who watched this episode in 1992 probably laughed at the joke and moved on. It is a good joke. The timing is perfect. The idea of the universe literally cutting off the answer to the biggest question anyone has ever asked right at the moment it was about to be delivered is exactly the kind of comedy The Simpsons did better than anyone in those years. But there is something else in that scene. Something that was always there and that The Simpsons Wiki's own reference page for the episode confirms directly. God did not just cut Homer off at random. God gave Homer a specific window. When Homer asked why he had to wait, God said, "You cannot wait 6 months?" 6 months. Not a vague someday, not eventually. 6 months exactly. The Simpsons Wiki states plainly, in the references section for this episode, at the end of the episode, God mentions that Homer has to wait 6 months to know the meaning of life, because Homer will die. Homer is going to die in 6 months. God knows this. Homer does not. The audience did not catch it in 1992, and 6 episodes after this one, in the same season, Homer Simpson has a massive heart attack and requires emergency open-heart surgery to survive. The episode is called Homer's Triple Bypass. It is Season 4, Episode 11. It aired December 17th, 1992. The episode where God gives Homer the 6-month window aired October 8th, 1992. That is approximately 10 weeks of airtime. In the world of the show, it is 6 months. Homer's heart gives out exactly when God said it would. He survives the surgery. Of course he does. It is a cartoon. But the point is not that Homer died. The point is that God knew. And God told Homer, in the gentlest possible way, during a dream, in a conversation that Homer mostly experienced as a pleasant theological debate, that the clock was already running. Homer asked how long he had to wait to find out the meaning of life. God told him 6 months. Homer did not understand what he was being told. He was too impatient and too happy in the moment to hear the thing underneath the answer. This is what the episode is about. Let us go back to the beginning of it. The episode is called Homer the Heretic. It is Season 3, Episode 3. Wait, it is Season 4, Episode 3. Production code 9F01. This matters because it was actually the first episode of Season 4 to be produced, even though it aired third. It was also the first Simpsons episode ever animated by a company called Film Roman, which took over from the previous animation studio. Everything about this episode marks a transition. The show was changing, the team was changing, and the episode they chose to make first in this new chapter was one about a man who decides he does not need God and then spends the rest of the episode finding out whether or not he is right. On a freezing cold Sunday morning, Homer tears his pants trying to get dressed for church and decides he is not going. The family leaves without him. Homer has the house to himself for the first time in what feels like forever. He makes waffles. He dances in his underwear. He wins a call-in radio contest. He watches football. He eats whatever he wants. By the end of the day, he declares it the best day of his life. This is not a bit. Homer means it. He has genuinely had a better day alone than he has ever had in church, and he decides on the spot that he will never go to church again. Marge is horrified. The kids are confused. Homer is resolute. That night, Marge prays for Homer while he tries to get her attention in ways that are not relevant to the point. Homer falls asleep while she is praying and has a dream. God comes to visit. God in this episode is drawn differently from every other character in the show. Everyone in The Simpsons has 4 fingers on each hand. God has 5. Director Jim Reardon later admitted in the DVD commentary that this was actually a production mistake. The animators drew God with 5 fingers without being asked to, and it got past everyone during review. But the detail has been analyzed so much and discussed so often in the years since that it has taken on its own meaning regardless of whether it was intended. God looks different from everyone in Springfield. He is not of this world. He has 1 more finger than anyone else. Whether that was an accident or not, it is what the episode shows. God is initially angry with Homer for skipping church. Homer pushes back. He makes a case for himself. He argues that he works hard and loves his kids and is not a bad person, and that going to a building once a week to be told he is going to hell does not seem like the best use of anyone's time. He also raises a point that Bart agrees with when Homer repeats it later. What if they picked the wrong religion? Every week they might be making God madder and madder with the wrong prayers. God actually engages with this. He sits down on Homer's couch. They talk. By the end of the dream, God agrees to let Homer worship in his own way. Homer wakes up. He takes this as a divine sign that he is allowed to do whatever he wants religiously, which he immediately turns into a personal religion with holidays he invented so he can get out of work. One of the holidays is called the Feast of Maximum Occupancy, named after the safety warning sign at Moe's Tavern, which reads, Maximum Occupancy 65. Homer saw the sign, wrote down the numbers, and declared June 5th a holy day. This is genuinely what he does. Ned Flanders tries to sing Homer back to church with a song about Noah. Reverend Lovejoy comes to dinner to reason with Homer using scripture. Homer remains committed. He has God's personal blessing as far as he understands it, and he intends to use it. The following Sunday, while the family is at church, Homer is home alone again. He falls asleep on the couch while smoking a lit cigar. The cigar falls onto a magazine. The magazine catches fire. The house burns. Homer wakes up to flames and thick smoke. He cannot get out. He passes out. What happens next is something Reverend Lovejoy later describes to Homer directly. God did not set your house on fire, Lovejoy says, but God was working in the hearts of your friends when they came to save you, be they Christian, Jew, or... And then he trails off, before finishing the last category, which is Hindu, because Apu is standing right there, and Lovejoy either cannot remember the word or does not want to say it. The people who save Homer are Ned Flanders, who is Christian, Krusty the Clown, who is Jewish. This episode aired the same season as Like Father, Like Clown, so by this point, the audience knows Krusty is Jewish, and Apu Nahasapima who is Hindu. 3 different religions, none of them Homer's invented one, all of them showing up to pull him out of a burning building on a Sunday morning. Homer survives. He is grateful. He is moved. He is also still not entirely sure whether God was punishing him or whether the fire was just the result of falling asleep with a lit cigar surrounded by adult magazines, which is, objectively, what happened. Then comes the final dream. Homer and God are walking together. The setting is bright and open in the way heaven tends to look in cartoons. Homer convinces God to tell him the meaning of life. God begins to answer. The credits roll. The sentence is cut off. There is a piece of production history that makes this funnier and darker at the same time. The joke was designed so that when the episode aired on Fox, God's answer would be cut off by a promotional announcement for the next show. The timing was built so that Fox's promo would literally interrupt the meaning of life. When the episode aired, Fox did not run the promo at that moment. The show just ended. God was cut off by silence. The joke landed differently than intended, not by a corporate announcement, but by nothing, by the universe simply closing the conversation, and some argue this version is actually better. Homer asked, God started answering. Nothing interrupted the answer. It just stopped. And underneath all of this, confirmed in the show's own reference material, is the fact that the 6 months God mentioned was not a vague estimate. It was a countdown. Homer's heart was already failing. His body was already building toward the event that would happen in episode 11 of this same season. God knew. Homer asked the most important question anyone can ask, and the person answering it already knew that Homer was going to need the answer sooner than either of them was letting on in that moment. Dan Castellaneta, the voice of Homer, has named this episode as one of his 2 favorites from the entire run of the show, alongside Simpson and Delilah. The writers of King of the Hill, in a roundtable discussion, listed it among the 5 best Simpsons episodes ever made. Bill Oakley, a former executive producer of the show, named it one of the best classic episodes to watch when The Simpsons came to Disney Plus in 2019. It holds an 8.9 out of 10 on IMDb from user reviews. It is considered one of the best episodes the show ever produced. None of that is what makes it dark. What makes it dark is the structure of what God actually told Homer, buried inside a comedy episode about a man who just wanted to sleep in and eat waffles. Homer asked, "Can I find out the meaning of life?" God said, "Yes." In 6 months. Homer heard, "Great, something to look forward to." What God meant, "You are going to need it soon." Homer's heart gave out, on schedule. He survived, he got the surgery, the show reset, he went back to the couch, he never thought about the 6-month window again because he did not know it had been a window. He thought it was a rough timeline for a theological conversation. He did not know it was a medical prediction from a being who could see the rest of his story. The meaning of life got cut off by the credits. Homer never heard it. But if the reference page is right, if God gave that number because Homer was going to die and not because it was a random joke, then Homer was walking through what appeared to be heaven with God, asking about the meaning of life, while God already knew exactly how close Homer was to finding out for real. And God started to answer. And the episode ended. The meaning of life remains unheard. Quote _3 __. Season 4 ends with God whispering a deadline into a joke and hoping Homer did not notice. Season 5 takes everything the show built in its first 4 years and puts it in a room with a man who has been trying to kill a child for the last 2 seasons and asks a question the show had never quite asked out loud before. What does it feel like to be Bart Simpson when Bart Simpson is actually afraid? Section 5, Season 5, The Man Who Keeps Getting Up. There is a scene in Season 5 where Sideshow Bob is riding underneath the Simpsons' car. Not inside the car, not following the car, underneath it, strapped to the chassis, being dragged along the road at highway speed while the family drives to their new home without any idea he is there. The road hits a speed bump. Bob screams. Homer throws hot coffee out the window. It hits Bob in the face. Homer decides, on a whim, to drive through a cactus patch. The family cheers. Bob goes through the cactus patch too, because Bob is underneath the car and has no say in the matter. He does not let go. He does not give up. He stays under that car for the entire drive. This is the same man who, earlier in the episode, convinced a parole board to release him from prison by arguing that his chest tattoo reading "Die Bart Die" was actually German for "the Bart the." One of the parole board members said, and this is a direct quote from the episode, "No one who speaks German could be an evil man." The board released him. Robert Underdunk Terwilliger Jr., known to Springfield as Sideshow Bob, is one of the most educated, most cultured, and most persistently dangerous characters the show ever created. He has a degree. He speaks multiple languages. He can perform entire Gilbert and Sullivan operas from memory. He has genuine taste and genuine intelligence and genuine talent. And he has spent the better part of 3 seasons trying to murder a 10-year-old boy. The episode is called Cape Fear. It is Season 5, Episode 2. It aired October 7th, 1993. Entertainment Weekly ranked it the 3rd greatest episode in the show's entire history in 2003. It holds a 9.2 out of 10 on IMDb. Al Jean, who has been the showrunner of The Simpsons for most of its run, has called it his favorite Sideshow Bob episode and his favorite episode of the show overall. It is also, once you look at it straight, one of the most genuinely frightening things a mainstream animated comedy has ever put on television. Not because of jump scares or gore or anything overtly scary, but because of what it says about the kind of danger that is persistent, intelligent, and absolutely committed. Here is the beginning of the episode. Bart starts receiving death threats in the mail, letters written in blood, multiple letters. He does not know who is sending them, and the paranoia builds quickly. He becomes afraid of everyone around him. He suspects his teacher. He suspects his friends. He is jumpy and anxious in a way the show almost never lets Bart be, because Bart is usually the one causing anxiety in other people rather than experiencing it himself. It turns out Homer also sent a threatening letter. Homer wrote, "I will kill you, scum," in black ink, and mailed it, for reasons the show does not fully explain, because Homer sometimes does things that have no explanation, and the show has learned to just let those moments sit. but the real letters are from Sideshow Bob, who is in prison and who has been sending the letters as a way of letting Bart know that the moment he gets out, the intention is unchanged. Bob has not moved on. Bob has not found closure or peace or a new hobby. Bob is in prison writing death threats in blood to a child, because that is where Bob is in his life at this point. Bob's parole hearing is one of the great dark comedy scenes the show ever produced. Selma Bouvier, who Bob actually tried to murder during their brief marriage in a previous episode, testifies against him. Bob's lawyer responds by asking everyone in the room who has also wanted to kill Selma to raise their hand. Most of the room raises their hands, including Selma's own sister Patty, who explains that Selma leaves the toilet seat up. The parole board nods. Bob is asked about the tattoo. He says it is German. The board believes him. He walks out. What the parole scene is doing, underneath the comedy, is showing exactly how Springfield's systems work. A man who tried to kill someone gets out of prison because his lawyer appealed to the room's shared irritation with his victim. The legal process that is supposed to protect people from dangerous individuals instead becomes a vehicle for releasing them, because the people running the process are the same easily manipulated, short-sighted Springfield residents who populate every other episode. The parole board is not evil. They are just exactly as foolish as everyone else in this town, and that foolishness has consequences that land on a 10-year-old boy. The FBI gets involved. The family is placed in a witness protection program and given new identities. Homer cannot learn his new name, no matter how many times the agents try to teach him. They spend hours trying to get Homer to respond to Mr. Thompson. He cannot do it. He stands there with a blank expression while agents beg him to smile and nod. He does not smile. He does not nod. He stares. The family moves to a houseboat on something called Terror Lake, which is not a subtle name. Their new identities are in place. They are far from Springfield. Bob does not know where they are. Bob has been under their car the entire time. He steps on a rake when he gets to the houseboat. The rake hits him in the face. He steps on another rake. It hits him in the face. He steps on rake after rake after rake, 12 of them in a row, each one snapping up and striking him directly, and he does not stop. He keeps walking. He keeps getting hit. He keeps going. The director of the episode, Rich Moore, and the writer, John Vitti, discuss this scene in the DVD commentary. They kept the rake sequence in because it worked better the more times it repeated. It was funnier the 12th time than the first. But there is something else in that scene beyond the comedy. Bob is walking through an obstacle that keeps hitting him in the face, and he will not stop walking. His goal is on the other side of the rakes, and the rakes are not going to change that. He is going to walk through every single one of them. That is who Sideshow Bob is. That is the dark core of what this episode is showing. He is not deterred by pain. He is not deterred by inconvenience. He is not deterred by imprisonment, by distance, by new identities, by hiding, by the FBI, by cacti, by hot coffee, or by 12 consecutive rakes to the face. He makes a plan. The plan encounters obstacles. He absorbs the obstacles. He continues. The climax of the episode happens on the houseboat at night. Bob has tied the family up. Bart is alone with him. Bob announces that he is going to kill Bart now. He has a large knife. The family is restrained. There is nowhere for Bart to go. Bart stalls. He tells Bob that a man of his obvious intelligence and talent deserves to have his last act witnessed properly. He tells Bob that before he dies, he would like to hear Bob perform the entire score of HMS Pinafore by Gilbert and Sullivan. Bob agrees. This is important. Bob agrees because his cultural vanity is the one thing larger than his murderous intent, and Bart has correctly identified this. Bob performs the entire show, every song, every verse. By the time he finishes, dawn is breaking and the houseboat is drifted into Springfield's harbor, where police are waiting. Bob is arrested. Again. This was the last episode written by the original Season 1 writing team. Sam Simon, Jeff Martin, and John Vitti were the last of the original staff, and Cape Fear was designed as their goodbye. They wanted to go out on something that represented the best of what they had built. They picked an episode about a man who rides under a car through a cactus patch to try to kill a child, and who is ultimately stopped not by police or parents or any adult authority, but by a 10-year-old boy who understood that ego is the one thing smarter than survival instinct. The dark theory of this episode is not really a theory. It is a pattern that the episode states openly and the show reinforces over the next 30 years. Bob is released from prison in this episode because the legal system failed. He is released from prison in every subsequent Sideshow Bob episode because the legal system keeps failing. He appears in 14 episodes across the run of the show. He goes to prison, he gets out. He tries again, he goes back, he gets out. The specific mechanism of his release changes each time, but the result is always the same. A man who has dedicated a significant portion of his adult life to killing a child keeps being given opportunities to try again. And the child never fully stops being afraid. The opening of Cape Fear establishes this clearly. Bart is scared in a way the show does not usually allow. He checks his mail with genuine anxiety. He lies. Awake at night, he suspects people he knows. He is 10 years old, and he has a documented enemy with stated homicidal intentions, and the enemy keeps getting out of jail. The rake scene is funny. It is one of the most remembered visual gags in the show's history. But the rake scene is also Bob walking through 12 things that hurt him, because nothing that hurts him is going to stop him. And if you are the 10-year-old boy he is walking toward, the comedy and the terror are the same thing. There is one more detail worth sitting with. At the parole hearing, before Bob presents his German argument for the tattoo, the board members look at it carefully. Die, Bart, die. Then they look at him. The woman on the board says the line about German speakers and evil men. She means it sincerely. She is genuinely reassured by the idea that someone who speaks a foreign language could not be dangerous. She votes to release him. This woman is responsible for everything that happens in this episode. Not Bob. Bob is going to do what Bob does. The woman on the parole board who was convinced by a linguistic joke is the one who opened the door and handed Bob a path back to Bart. She is not a villain. She is just someone who is not paying close enough attention. Springfield is full of people who are not paying close enough attention, and the show keeps showing us what happens to the people those inattentive adults are supposed to be protecting. Bart survives Cape Fear because he is smart enough and brave enough and quick enough to turn Bob's ego against him. He survives because he bought enough time by being cleverer in the moment than any adult around him managed to be. He survives despite the parole board, despite the FBI failing to notice Bob under the car, despite Homer being unable to remember a fake name. Bob goes back to prison. The houseboat drifts into harbor. The credits roll. Springfield resets. And somewhere in a prison cell, a very intelligent man with a Gilbert and Sullivan obsession and a long memory is already thinking about next time. __quote_4__. Season 5 showed us that the danger in Springfield is patient and persistent and keeps getting released. Season 6 goes somewhere bigger and colder. A single old man decides to block out the sun over an entire town, destroys the livelihoods of nearly every person in Springfield in one afternoon, and gets shot for it. The person who shot him is 1 year old, and the show treats all of this as a summer cliffhanger. Section 6, Season 6, The Man Who Stole the Sun. There is a moment in the Season 6 finale where Mr. Burns stands in the middle of Springfield and blocks out the sun. Not metaphorically, not as a figure of speech. He builds a giant mechanical device, positions it over the town, and removes direct sunlight from the lives of every person in Springfield. Permanently. The sky goes dark in the middle of the day. Plants begin to die. People who work outside cannot work anymore. Children who play in the park have no sun to play in. The entire town loses something that every living thing on Earth needs to survive, because one very old, very rich man decided that if people could not get sunlight for free, they would have to buy electricity from him around the clock. This is not the climax of a villain episode. This is not a treehouse of horror. This is the Season 6 finale of a family comedy airing in May of 1995, and it ends with Mr. Burns getting shot by an unknown assailant and collapsing in a fountain while the whole town watches. The episode is called Who Shot Mr. Burns? Part 1. It is Season 6, Episode 25. It aired May 21st, 1995. It generated national news coverage. People called radio stations to discuss who the shooter might be. The mystery ran through the entire summer. A 900 number was set up so fans could call in their guesses. The answer was revealed in the Season 7 premiere. The shooter was Maggie Simpson. She is 1 year old. But the dark theory here is not really about who pulled the trigger. The dark theory is about everything Burns did before he got shot, and the fact that the show plays most of it as setup for a comedy mystery rather than as the systematic destruction of an entire community by a single powerful man. Let us go through what Burns actually does in this episode, specifically and in order. Springfield Elementary School discovers oil beneath its property. The oil is found when the school begins drilling for a new well and hits a massive underground reservoir. This is genuinely significant. The school has been underfunded for years. Principal Skinner and the staff see the oil as a solution to everything. New equipment, better supplies, real resources for the children who attend. The school begins to plan what to do with it. Burns finds out about the oil. He maneuvers to take control of it by drilling diagonally from his own property, tunneling underneath Springfield, and tapping the reservoir before the school can reach it. He steals the school's oil. The school gets nothing. The plans for new equipment vanish. The foundation of the cafeteria collapses in the process. While his drilling operation is running under Springfield, it destroys the foundation beneath Maude's tavern. The floor of the bar collapses into a sinkhole. Moe loses his business. The tavern that has been a fixture of Homer's life and the lives of every adult in Springfield falls into a hole in the ground because Burns needed to run a pipe in that direction. The drilling also ruptures something beneath the Springfield retirement castle, where Abe Simpson lives. The retirement home is badly damaged. Elderly residents who have nowhere else to go lose their living situation because Burns needed to get his pipe through. After securing the oil, Burns then unveils the device he has built. He calls it the sun blocker. It is exactly what it sounds like. A massive mechanical contraption designed to position itself between Springfield and the sun, cutting off natural light from the entire town. His reasoning is stated out loud in the episode. If people cannot get light for free from the sky, they will have to use electric light, which they will have to pay for, and Burns owns the power plant. Blocking the sun is not a side effect of his plan, it is the plan. He unveils this at a town meeting. The room turns against him almost immediately. Every person in Springfield has been hurt by what he has done. The teachers whose school he robbed, Moe, who has no bar, Abe Simpson, who has no stable home, Homer, who has been personally wronged in a way that will become relevant in a moment. The whole town is in that room, and the whole town understands what Burns is about to do to them. Burns does not care. He activates the device. The sun disappears. Now here is the part involving Homer specifically. Burns has been trying to remember Homer's name throughout this episode, as he has throughout the series, because Homer is genuinely not memorable enough for Mr. Burns to retain in his mind despite years of working for him. At the town meeting, Burns pulls out a gun and sweeps it across the crowd. The gun settles on Homer. Burns cannot remember who he is. Homer, desperate to be recognized, shouts his own name. Burns writes it down on his hand so he will not forget it. Then he dismisses everyone and leaves. On the way out, Burns physically shoves Homer aside. He also, at some point in the episode, cancels Homer's dental plan for the employees of the power plant. This is not a small thing. Homer has 3 children and a wife. Dental care for a family of 5 is not trivial. Burns removes it casually as a minor administrative decision without any awareness of what it means for the people affected. Homer is now on the list of people in Springfield who have been specifically personally wronged by Burns in this episode. The list by the end of the episode is extremely long. It includes the entire teaching staff of the elementary school. It includes Moe. It includes every elderly resident of the retirement home. It includes every person in Springfield who works outdoors, or grows anything, or simply needs sunlight to function. It includes Homer. It includes, in a way that becomes the answer to the mystery, Maggie Simpson. Maggie shoots Burns in the town fountain. The gun that fires is Homer's gun, which was in the glove compartment of the family car. Burns, while ranting and confused, grabbed the baby, and in the struggle the gun went off. This is confirmed in the Season 7 premiere. Burns was not specifically targeted by a trained shooter with a motive. He was shot by a 1-year-old during a struggle over a gun that should not have been accessible in the first place. The gun being in the glove compartment, within reach of a baby, in a car belonging to a man who works at a nuclear power plant, is a detail the show drops into the episode without comment. There is no scene where Homer puts the gun there. There is no explanation of why it is there. It is simply established to be there when the plot needs it to be. Homer's dental plan being canceled, the gun being in the car, the baby being in the car during the confrontation, these are the pieces. The show lays them out and lets the audience assemble them. Burns is found collapsed in the fountain. He is barely alive. He is delirious. When investigators ask him who shot him, he points at the crowd and appears to say, "Homer Simpson." He is pointing at Maggie, who is being held in Homer's arms. He is too far gone to communicate clearly. Homer becomes the primary suspect in a shooting carried out by an infant. This is the setup. All of it is played for entertainment value and mystery. The national conversation that summer was about who did it, not about what Burns had done to deserve it. And that is the dark theory this episode is sitting on, very quietly, while everyone was focused on the mystery. Burns systematically destroyed the financial security of a school full of children. He collapsed a bar. He destabilized an old people's home. He removed the sun from a town. He did all of this openly, in front of everyone, and faced no legal consequences of any kind. No police arrived to stop the drilling. No court issued an order against the sunblocker. No government agency intervened when a private citizen blocked out the sun over a populated area. The only consequence Burns faced was getting shot by a baby, and even that was an accident. The show treats the shooting as a cliffhanger because it is a brilliant piece of television architecture. The summer-long mystery was genuinely exciting. Who shot Mr. Burns is one of the most famous questions the show ever asked. But underneath the mystery is a very simple and very dark observation about how power works in Springfield and, by extension, in the world the show is satirizing. Burns can take the school's oil. Burns can destroy Moe's bar. Burns can destabilize the retirement home. Burns can block out the sun. None of these actions produce any institutional response. The town has a meeting. Burns ignores it. The police, who are present at various points in the episode, do not arrest him. The legal system that failed to keep Sideshow Bob away from a child also fails to stop an old man from stealing from a school and blocking out a star. The only person who stops Burns is a baby with accidental access to a gun. Producer George Meyer, who was one of the key creative forces behind the show during this era, once said in an interview that the Frank Grimes episode was about shining a light on everything wrong-headed and idiotic about Springfield's world. Who Shot Mr. Burns does something similar, but from the other direction. It does not put a normal person into Springfield to notice how broken it is. It takes the most powerful person in Springfield and shows exactly how much damage that person can do when no system exists to stop them. The answer to how much damage is all of it. Burns can do all of it. He can take everything. He can block out the sun. He can ruin every institution that serves the community. The only limit on what he can do is a 1-year-old with her hand on a trigger. Springfield cheers when they find out he was shot. The whole town. Everyone who was in that meeting, everyone who lost something, everyone whose life Burns casually dismantled over the course of one episode, they are all glad he got shot. The show lets them be glad. It does not moralize. It does not suggest that shooting people is wrong. It just shows a town full of people who had everything taken from them and who felt something lift when the person who took it fell into a fountain. That is not a mystery. That is a verdict. The sun comes back eventually. Moe rebuilds. The retirement home presumably stabilizes. Springfield resets, as Springfield always resets. Burns recovers and returns to his office and continues. The sun blocker is presumably dismantled. The school presumably does not get its oil money back. Nothing structurally changes. Everything that allowed Burns to do what he did is still in place when the next episode begins. The power plant is still his. The legal system is still as effective as a parole board that believes German speakers cannot be evil. The people of Springfield are still exactly as protected as they were before he blocked out the sun, which is to say, not at all. The baby who stopped him is 1 year old. She will be 1 year old next season. She will be 1 year old in 30 years. She does not age. She cannot vote. She cannot testify. She cannot do anything except, on one afternoon in May of 1995, grab a gun by accident and pull a trigger and temporarily stop the worst thing that ever happened to Springfield. Her mother and father do not know she did it. Nobody tells them for the entire summer. __quote _5 __. Season 6 showed us a world where a powerful man can do anything he wants, and the only thing that stops him is an accident. Season 7 goes somewhere smaller and stranger. It takes a 10-year-old boy who has never taken anything seriously, hands him a piece of paper, and spends 22 minutes showing what happens when Bart Simpson discovers that something has been missing from his life all along, and that his little sister noticed before he did. Section 7, Season 7, The Boy Without a Soul. There is a scene in Season 7 where Bart Simpson is standing outside in the rain, alone, unable to get a freezer door to fog up with his breath. He breathes on the glass. Nothing happens. No fog. No condensation. Just cold glass and his breath passing through it like he is not entirely there. He stares at the door. He tries again. Still nothing. He walks home in the rain looking like something has been removed from him, because something has. He sold it for $5. He bought a sponge dinosaur with the money. The dinosaur did not work the way he hoped. The episode is called Bart Sells His Soul. It is Season 7, Episode 4. It aired October 8th, 1995. Matt Groening has named it one of his favorite episodes of the entire series. The show's own writing staff has ranked it among the top 5 episodes ever produced. It has been used as a teaching tool in Catholic schools, Sunday school classes, and university philosophy courses. A Cambridge theologian named Don Coupet wrote about it. Psychologists Paul Bloom and David Pizarro analyzed it in a published book about the psychology of The Simpsons. It is an episode about whether souls are real, written for a children's cartoon, and it takes the question completely seriously. Here is what happens. Bart pulls a prank at church. He swaps the opening hymn for a song called Inagata de Vida by Iron Butterfly, which he presents on the hymn sheet as In the Garden of Eden by Iron Butterfly. The song is 17 minutes long. The organist collapses at the end of it. Reverend Lovejoy assembles the children and demands to know who did it. Milhouse, afraid of divine punishment, immediately names Bart. As punishment, Bart and Milhouse are assigned to clean the organ pipes. While they work, the conversation turns to souls. Bart announces that souls do not exist. He says it is something they made up to scare kids, like the boogeyman or Michael Jackson. Milhouse pushes back. If Bart is so sure there is no such thing as a soul, Milhouse says, why not sell it? Bart writes Bart Simpson's soul on a piece of paper and sells it to Milhouse for $5. He buys a sponge dinosaur that is supposed to expand in water. It barely expands. The money is already gone. The soul, such as it is, belongs to Milhouse. Lisa finds out and is horrified. She tells Bart that the soul is the most important thing a person has. Bart is not moved. He does not believe her. Then the strange things start happening. Santa's little helper, the family dog, growls at Bart. Snowball the cat hisses. The pets have always been friendly to Bart. They do not recognize him now, or they recognize something different in him, and they want nothing to do with it. The automatic doors at the Quickie Mart do not open for him. He stands in front of them. They stay shut. He waves his arms. Nothing. Other people walk through without issue. The doors open for everyone except Bart. Apu watches from behind the counter with an unreadable expression. He cannot fog the freezer glass with his breath. He cannot laugh at Itchy and Scratchy, which he has watched and laughed at his whole life without ever needing to think about it. He watches the cartoon and nothing happens inside him. The joke lands, the reaction does not come. He starts having nightmares. In the dream, every other child in Springfield is in a bright open space, each one with a glowing companion beside them, their soul. The children get into boats, 2 to a boat, and row together toward an amusement park on a distant shore. Bart gets into a boat alone. He cannot row. He has no companion. The other children pull away from him easily. He sits in his boat and cannot move, while everyone he knows disappears towards something he cannot reach. He decides he needs the paper back. Milhouse has already sold it to Comic Book Guy for a set of Alf Pogs. Comic Book Guy does not have it anymore either. The soul has passed through multiple hands, and Bart has no idea where it is now. He spends the episode trying to track it down, increasingly desperate, while the strange occurrences keep happening. Here is the piece that matters most and gets discussed least. Bart cannot find the soul. He cannot buy it back. He cannot get to it. He prays. He actually gets on his knees in his room and prays, sincerely, asking God to help him get his soul back. This is Bart Simpson, who pulled the prank at the beginning of the episode to prove he did not take religion seriously, praying alone in his room with genuine desperation. He says, "Are you there, God? It is me, Bart Simpson." Then something floats down from above, a piece of paper. Bart Simpson's soul, written in his own handwriting. It has come back to him. He does not question where it came from. He eats it immediately, consuming the paper before Lisa can finish explaining anything. She watches him eat his own soul and shakes her head. Then she tells him something. She says that some philosophers believe that no one is born with a soul. You have to earn one through suffering and thought and prayer. Bart ignores this. He already has the paper back. He is done. But Lisa knows where the paper came from. She bought it. She found it, tracked it down, spent her own money to purchase her brother's soul, and float it down to him from the top bunk so it would look like it came from above. She engineered a miracle for her brother. She made it look like an answer to his prayer. She let him believe, for a moment, that something heard him. And he ate the paper before she could tell him any of this, and went back to being Bart. Writer Greg Daniels confirmed in the DVD commentary that he was inspired to write this episode by an experience from his own childhood in which he had actually purchased a bully's soul. The episode was not built from a theological argument. It was built from a memory. The strangeness of it, the automatic doors, the pets, the fog on the glass, was Daniel's attempt to show what it would actually feel like if something genuinely important had been removed from a person, not through pain or injury, but through a transaction so small and casual that the person doing it did not understand what they were giving away until it was gone. The episode works because the show plays it completely straight. It does not explain the automatic doors. It does not give a scientific reason why the fog does not form. It does not tell the audience whether souls are real or whether Bart is experiencing something psychological. It just shows a boy standing in the rain who cannot make his breath appear on glass, and it lets that image sit. The dark reading is the one Lisa's final line opens up. Some philosophers believe no one is born with a soul. You earn it through suffering, thought, and prayer. If that is true, then the piece of paper Bart ate was not his soul at all. It was a piece of paper his sister bought for $5. The suffering and thought and prayer required to actually earn a soul, the nightmare, the rain, the locked doors, the thing that was missing, that was the real process. Bart went through all of it. And then he ate the paper and moved on before it could mean anything. Lisa watched him do it. She bought him the thing he needed. She let him think it was a miracle. She knew he would not listen to the explanation. She was right. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Season 7 gave us a boy who sold the most important thing he had for $5 and got it back without ever understanding what getting it back cost his sister. Season 8 takes that same world and drops a real person into it. Not a cartoon character, not someone built for Springfield, but a man who worked hard his whole life and ended up in the wrong universe. And the universe destroyed him for noticing. Section 8, Season 8, The Man Springfield Killed for Being Right. There is a scene near the end of Season 8 where Frank Grimes is being buried and Homer Simpson falls asleep at the funeral. Homer's head drops, his eyes close, he starts dreaming. Then, half awake, he calls out to Marge to change the channel. The congregation laughs. Reverend Lovejoy laughs. Everyone at the funeral of a man who died the day before laughs at the man whose existence drove him to his death. The coffin is being lowered into the ground while the laughter happens. The show does not cut away. It holds on the moment long enough for the audience to register what they are watching, which is a room full of people finding Homer funny at the exact moment Homer's presence is most inappropriate and most cruel. Then the episode ends. The episode is called Homer's Enemy. It is Season 8, Episode 23. It aired May 4th, 1997. It holds a 9.3 out of 10 on IMDb, the highest user rating of any episode in the show's entire history. Matt Groening has named it one of his favorites. John Swartzwelder, who wrote it, considers it among his best work. It is also, by the admission of the people who made it, one of the darkest and most deliberately cruel things the show ever produced. Here is Frank Grimes from the beginning. Grimes was abandoned by his parents at age 4. He spent his childhood working as a delivery boy, carrying gifts to children from families that had not abandoned them. On his 18th birthday, he was caught in a silo explosion. Nobody has ever explained what he was doing in the silo or how it exploded. A flashback shows him simply running toward the silo, which then erupts. He survived. He spent time in hospital recovering from his injuries. Then he put himself through school entirely on his own, studying at night, working during the day, until he earned a degree in nuclear physics. He lives above a bowling alley and below another bowling alley. Mr. Burns sees a news report about Grimes and is moved enough by his story to hire him as executive vice president of the Springfield nuclear power plant. The next morning, Burns sees another news report, this one about a dog that saved a child by pushing a criminal into the street. Burns immediately forgets about Grimes and gives the executive vice president position to the dog. Grimes is assigned to work in Sector 7G next to Homer Simpson. From the moment Grimes arrives in Sector 7G, the episode makes no attempt to hide what it is doing. Grimes looks at Homer and cannot process what he sees. Homer is lazy. Homer is incompetent. Homer brings a drink with a little umbrella in it to his workstation. Homer does not know basic things about the job he has held for years. Homer almost drinks a beaker of acid because he picked it up thinking it was a soda. Grimes slaps the acid out of Homer's hand to save his life. Burns sees this and blames Grimes for the mess the acid made when it spilled. Grimes receives a pay cut for saving Homer's life. The details of Homer's life make things worse. Homer has been to space. Homer has a Grammy from his time in a barbershop quartet. Homer has a photo with President Gerald Ford on his wall. Homer owns a home. Homer has a wife who loves him and 3 children. Grimes, who has worked harder than Homer in every measurable way since he was 4 years old, lives above and below a bowling alley and has nothing Homer has. Homer tries to be friendly. He invites Grimes to dinner. Grimes comes, not realizing it is a dinner invitation, and walks into the Simpson house and sees all of it. The space photos, the Grammy, the size of the rooms, and something breaks in him. He tells Homer, in front of Homer's family, that Homer is what is wrong with America, that Homer represents everything unfair about the world, that someone like Homer should not have any of this. Then Homer enters Grimes into a children's contest to design a nuclear power plant model as a prank intending to humiliate him. Homer enters himself too, not understanding that the contest is for children. Homer wins. His model, which is a copy of the existing power plant with fins added to reduce wind resistance and a racing stripe for visual appeal, receives thunderous applause from the audience. Children's drawings lose to Homer's absurd entry. The audience cheers. Grimes snaps. He runs through the plant mimicking Homer's behavior, his voice rising, grabbing things without care, declaring himself Homer Simpson. He reaches a panel of high-voltage cables. The label reads, "Extremely high voltage." Grimes, deep in his breakdown, says the words that end his life. "Well, I do not need safety gloves because I am Homer Simpson." And then he grabs the cables. He is buried the next day. Homer falls asleep at the funeral. Everyone laughs. Now here's what the people who made this episode said about it afterward. Producer George Meyer gave an interview to a publication called The Believer, in which he said the following. He said that Grimes's crime was that he shined a light on Springfield. He said that Grimes pointed out everything that was wrong-headed and idiotic about that world. He said that the people who do that tend to become martyrs. He said that Grimes said things that needed to be said, but that once they were said, the show needed to destroy that person. Then he said, "I will admit, we took a certain sadistic glee in his downfall. He was such a righteous person, and that somehow made his demise more satisfying." John Swartzwelder, the writer, was asked about the dark ending in an interview with The New Yorker. He said, "Grimey was asking for it the whole episode. He did not approve of our Homer. He was asking for it, and he got it. These are the people who built Frank Grimes explaining, in plain language, that they killed him because he was right, not despite him being right, because of it." Josh Weinstein, one of the executive producers that season, said he regretted killing Grimes after only one episode, and described him as such an amazing character. But the killing was the point. Grimes could not exist in Springfield beyond a single episode, because his existence asked a question that Springfield cannot survive having asked too loudly or too long. The question is simple. It is the same question Frank Grimes asks with his entire presence from the moment he arrives in Sector 7G. Why does Homer Simpson have all of this? Not why does Homer have specific things. Why does a man who is careless and lazy and incompetent and has nearly caused multiple nuclear disasters live a comfortable life with a family who loves him, while a man who survived abandonment and a silo explosion and put himself through school working nights gets a pay cut for saving that same careless man's life? Grimes asked this question by existing. Springfield answered it by destroying him. Then Springfield laughed at his funeral. The episode holds the highest rating in the show's history. People love it. They love it because it is brilliantly written and genuinely funny, and Hank Azaria's voice performance as Grimes is one of the best performances the show ever got from any of its actors. Azaria said in interviews that he based the character on actor William H. Macy, and that the role required more preparation and effort than anything else he had ever done for the show. All of that is true, and all of that is real, and none of it changes what the episode is doing underneath the comedy. Frank Grimes worked harder than anyone. He earned less than anyone. He was right about everything. He said so. Springfield killed him for it. Then Springfield laughed at his grave. The show never brings him back. His tombstone appears in later episodes as a background detail, including one episode where a child named Ralph Wiggum plays on his grave like a sandbox. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Season 8 showed us what Springfield does to a person who sees it clearly and says so out loud. Season 9 goes somewhere that the fans never forgave the show for, and does something even stranger. It takes a character everyone thought they knew, hands him a completely different identity, and then has the town vote to make the lie the legal truth. Not because the lie is better, just because it is more comfortable. Section 9, Season 9, The Town That Voted for a Lie. There is a moment in Season 9 where a judge in Springfield issues a court order declaring that a lie is now the official truth. Not a legal technicality, not a complicated ruling about evidence or procedure. A judge looks at a room full of people, acknowledges that the man they have known for years as Principal Seymour Skinner is not actually Seymour Skinner, and then orders everyone to pretend that he is anyway. The real Seymour Skinner is placed on a bus out of town with a one-way ticket. The man whose real name is Armin Tamzarian is legally declared to be Seymour Skinner from that moment forward. And then, under penalty of torture, nobody is allowed to mention any of this ever again. The judge says the words "under penalty of torture" in open court. In a children's cartoon. On a Sunday night in 1997, the audience laughed because it was absurd, but the judge meant it. The order stands. The lie becomes the law. The episode is called The Principal and the Pauper. It is Season 9, Episode 2. It aired September 28, 1997. It was written by Ken Keeler and directed by Stephen Dean Moore. It is one of the most argued about episodes in the show's history, not because it is confusing, but because it is deeply uncomfortable in a way that a lot of the audience did not want their Sunday night cartoon to be. Here is what happens from the start. Springfield Elementary School is throwing a party for Principal Skinner to celebrate his 20th anniversary at the school. The whole town is there. Ned Flanders, Bart and Lisa, Homer and Marge. Everyone who has known Skinner for 2 decades is gathered to honor him. Then a stranger walks in. The stranger is a man named Seymour Skinner, the real one. He is played by Martin Sheen. He is a decorated war veteran who served with a young, troubled man named Armin Tamzarian in Vietnam. Tamzarian was a street kid with no direction, no family, and no future. Skinner mentored him. Then Skinner went missing in action, and Tamzarian, believing his mentor was dead, went to find Skinner's mother and tell her what happened. Agnes Skinner needed a son. Tamzarian needed a life. He became Seymour Skinner. He took the name, moved into the house, cared for Agnes, and eventually became the principal of Springfield Elementary. He built a life out of a borrowed identity and held it together for decades. The real Skinner's arrival destroys all of it in one evening. Springfield's initial reaction is fascination. The real Skinner is charming and adventurous. He rides motorcycles. He is everything the Principal Skinner they know is not. Agnes, the woman Tamzarian spent years caring for while pretending to be her son, immediately prefers the real Seymour to the man who has lived with her and looked after her for 20 years. She says so directly. She is not subtle about it. The town shifts toward the real Skinner quickly. The principal they have known, whose real name is Armin Tamzarian, is removed from his position. He packs his things. He leaves Springfield on a motorcycle, heading back to the life he had before he borrowed someone else's. Then the real Skinner tries to actually do the job. It does not go well. He is not built for it. He does not know the children. He does not know the rhythms of the school. He does not have the years of context that Tamzarian built up quietly and consistently across 2 decades of showing up every day. The school starts to fall apart. The community starts to miss the man they had before, not because they understood who he really was, but because he worked. The version of Skinner they are used to, whatever his real name was, functioned. He kept the school running. He knew Bart's file by heart. He knew how to manage Agnes. He knew Springfield. Marge goes to find Tamzarian. He is back in his old neighborhood, tattooed and directionless again, back to the version of himself that existed before Skinner gave him a shape. She tells him that Springfield needs him back. He returns. The town gathers. They decide collectively that they want Tamzarian back as Skinner. Not because they have worked through the complicated ethics of identity and chosen the honest path, because they are more comfortable with the familiar lie than with the real man who came to claim his own name. Judge Snyder issues the court order. Armin Tamzarian is legally Seymour Skinner. The real Seymour Skinner is put on a bus to Capital City with a one-way ticket and told not to come back. Under penalty of torture, this is never to be discussed again. The real Seymour Skinner rides away on his bus. The last image is him looking out the window, watching Springfield disappear behind him. He is a decorated war veteran who served his country, survived captivity, came back to reclaim his own name, and was legally exiled because the town found someone else's use of his identity more convenient than his actual existence. The episode was written by Ken Keeler, who has a doctorate from Harvard. The script is precise. The legal absurdity is deliberate. The court order is not a throwaway joke. It is the point. Now here is what makes this genuinely dark rather than just controversial. Springfield did not choose Tamzarian because he was better. They did not choose him because they examined the situation carefully and concluded that identity is complicated and the man who showed up every day and did the work deserved to keep doing it. They chose him because change is uncomfortable, and the real thing felt wrong after they got used to the fake thing. Agnes Skinner spent one scene with her actual son and then watched him fail at the job and went back to preferring Tamzarian, at which point she started calling him Seymour again without any apparent difficulty. She had been lied to for 20 years. She found out the truth. She looked at the truth, decided it was inconvenient, and chose the lie back. The whole town did the same thing, together, with a court order. What the episode is describing, underneath its comedy, is a community that has so little interest in the truth that it will use its legal institutions to make lying mandatory. The judge who issues the order is the same system that let Sideshow Bob out of prison because a parole board found his German argument convincing. The court in Springfield does not exist to find the truth. It exists to confirm what people already decided they want to believe. The episode was deeply unpopular with longtime fans, and with many of the show's own writers. Al Jean, the showrunner, has acknowledged its divisive reception. The show itself later referenced it when Lisa calls the principal by his real name in a later episode. He simply walks away, confused, with no response. The court order holds. The name change is permanent. In the legal and social reality of Springfield, Armin Tamzarian does not exist. He has been erased by a judge's signature and a town's preference for comfort. The real Seymour Skinner is somewhere in Capital City. He has not come back. The show has never shown him again. There is a small detail the episode includes that nobody talks about much. When Tamzarian first arrived at Agnes's door all those years ago, he did not walk in and announce he was her son. He came to tell her the truth, that her real son was missing, possibly dead. Agnes, according to what the episode shows, allowed the situation to become what it became. She accepted Tamzarian as Seymour. She made the choice too, at the beginning, to take the available substitute rather than sit with the absence of the real thing. The lie was not entirely Tamzarian's. Springfield has always been willing to accept the comfortable version of things. Agnes accepted a replacement son, a town accepted a replacement principal, a judge made replacement the law, and a real man with a real name got on a bus and disappeared because the town he came back to decided that what they had built in his absence was worth more than he was. __quote _8 __ Season 9 showed us a town that made dishonesty into a court order. Season 10 goes somewhere more personal and more quietly devastating. It takes Homer Simpson, puts his father on an operating table, and shows us, with no ambiguity at all, what Homer does when the person who needs him most is the one he has spent his whole life failing to love properly. Section 10. Season 10. The Son Who Ran. There is a scene in Season 10 where Homer Simpson sneaks out of a hospital the night before he is supposed to donate a kidney to save his father's life. He does not tell anyone. He does not leave a note. He does not make a phone call. He checks in the evening before the surgery, goes through the process of being admitted, gets into the hospital bed, waits until the building gets quiet, and then gets up and leaves. He walks out of the hospital in the middle of the night and goes home. His father is in another room in the same building, waiting for a surgery that will not happen because the person who agreed to make it happen decided, alone and in the dark, that he would rather leave than go through with it. Abe Simpson wakes up the next morning and his son is gone. The episode is called Homer Simpson in Kidney Trouble. It is Season 10, Episode 8. It aired December 6, 1998. It is not one of the episodes people usually bring up when they talk about dark Simpsons moments. It does not have a famous scene or a quoted line or a cultural legacy the way some of the other episodes in this list do. It is quieter than that. It is the kind of dark that does not announce itself loudly, that sits in the details and in what the characters do when nobody is watching. Here is how it starts. The family goes on a trip to a frontier town, one of those tourist places where everything is meant to look like the old American West. Abe Simpson comes along. During the trip, Homer is driving a stagecoach and Abe needs to use the bathroom. He asks Homer to stop. Homer does not stop. He keeps driving because stopping would slow the trip down, and Homer does not want to slow the trip down. Abe holds it. He holds it for longer than a person should hold it. He holds it because his son will not stop the coach. Abe's kidneys fail as a direct result of holding his urine for too long at his age. He ends up in the hospital. Dr. Hibbert tells the family that Abe needs a kidney transplant to survive. Homer is tested and turns out to be the best possible match. Without a transplant, Abe will die. With one, he has a real chance. Homer is the only person who can give it to him. Homer agrees to do it. He says yes. He goes home and thinks about it. He comes back and says yes again. He checks into the hospital the night before the surgery. Then he leaves. This is not played ambiguously. The show does not suggest Homer had a medical reason or a sudden emergency or a misunderstanding. He got scared. He did not want to go through the surgery. He made a choice in the dark to walk out and go home and not be the person his father needed him to be. The show plays the early parts of this for comedy. Homer's various attempts to avoid the situation, his expressions when he realizes what is being asked of him, the speed at which he processes the 5 stages of grief that Dr. Hibbert walks him through. These are jokes, and they work as jokes. But the actual act of leaving the hospital in the middle of the night is not played as a punchline. It is just what Homer does. The show shows it and moves on. Abe is still in the hospital. Abe still needs the kidney. Homer still caused the situation by refusing to stop the stagecoach. And Homer's first real response to all of this, when faced with the actual moment of consequence, is to sneak out in the dark. The episode eventually gets Homer back into the surgery through a combination of guilt and pressure. The family finds out what he did. Marge is horrified. Lisa is disappointed. The situation is eventually resolved. Homer does end up donating the kidney. Abe gets the transplant. But the episode is not remembered for the resolution. The episode is remembered by the people who think about it carefully for the thing that happened before the resolution, for the sneaking out, for the empty hospital bed in the middle of the night, for Abe waking up and his son being gone. Here is the larger context that makes this episode darker than it appears on its own. Homer and Abe's relationship has been strained across the entire run of the show. Abe is a difficult man. He is forgetful and rambling, and often absorbed in his own stories in ways that make him hard to be around. But the show has also, in quieter moments, made clear that Homer did not give his father much of a chance. There are flashbacks across multiple seasons showing Homer as a teenager who was embarrassed by Abe, who pulled away from him, who chose friends and freedom over a father who was already lonely. In a Season 7 episode called Mother Simpson, Homer finds out that his mother Mona is still alive and has been hiding from the government for decades. The emotional weight of that episode lands largely on Homer's face at the end, standing outside looking up at the stars after his mother has had to leave again. It is one of the most genuinely moving shots in the show's history. Homer loves his mother. Her absence shaped him. That love is real and documented and runs through the episode clearly. What is also documented across many episodes is that Homer does not give that same energy to Abe. He drops Abe at the retirement home and leaves. He forgets Abe is there. He finds Abe's stories tedious. He does not call. He does not visit unless something forces him to. The show acknowledges this in small ways throughout its run, without ever making it the center of a serious episode, until season 10, when it becomes impossible to avoid. The kidney situation removes every excuse. There is no confusion about what is needed. There is no complicated history to navigate. There is one clear thing Homer can do to save his father's life, and he agreed to do it, and then he sneaked out of the hospital in the dark. TV Tropes documents this episode specifically in its section on unexpectedly dark Simpsons content, noting the tonal gap between the comedy framing and the genuine weight of what Homer actually does. The comedy is real, the framing is light, but the action at the center of the episode, a son abandoning his father on the night before life-saving surgery, is not light, and the show does not fully disguise this even while it is playing the surrounding material for laughs. This is also the season that critics point to as the beginning of what fans have called jerk-ass Homer. The term refers to a shift in Homer's character across the later seasons, away from the lovable and well-meaning but careless man of the early years, towards something more selfish and more deliberately cruel. The sneaking out of the hospital is one of the clearest early examples of this shift. Early Homer would have been scared. Early Homer might have needed convincing. Early Homer would not have checked in and waited until the building went quiet and then crept out without telling anyone. The cause of Abe's kidney failure is also worth holding on to. Homer would not stop the stagecoach. Abe asked. Homer kept driving. Abe's kidneys failed because Homer prioritized his own convenience over his father's basic physical need. Then Abe ended up in the hospital needing a transplant because of that decision. Then Homer agreed to provide the transplant. Then Homer snuck out in the dark. Every step in this chain was Homer's choice. The original choice, to keep driving, is played as a small moment of Homer being thoughtless in the way Homer is often thoughtless. But the chain it starts is not small. It ends with an old man waking up alone in a hospital room, waiting for a surgery, with his son's empty bed on the other side of the building. The surgery happens. Abe survives. Homer is guilted and shamed back into doing the right thing, as Homer often is. The show resets. Next episode, everything is fine. But the sneaking out happened. The empty bed happened. The dark walk home happened. And somewhere in the logic of who Homer Simpson actually is, the show put all of that on screen and let it be what it was, without flinching from it or cleaning it up before the audience could see. Abe got the kidney. He lived. His son saved him in the end. His son also almost did not. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Season 10 showed us Homer choosing to leave when his father needed him most. Season 11 shows us what happens when the show itself makes that same kind of choice, removing a character not because the story demanded it, but because of a contract dispute, and then watching the people who loved her grieve something the audience knows, and the characters do not, was taken away for the wrong reasons entirely. Section 11. Season 11. The Death That Should Not Have Happened. There is a scene in Season 11 where Ned Flanders stands at his wife's grave, and the show expects the audience to grieve with him. The audience does grieve. The scene works. Ned's pain is real within the episode, written carefully and performed with genuine feeling. The problem is that the audience watching at home knows something Ned does not know and cannot know because he is a cartoon character, and cartoon characters do not know why the writers made the choices they made. The audience knows that Maude Flanders did not die because the story required it. She died because her voice actress asked to be paid for travel expenses and the studio said no. That is the dark theory of season 11. Not a hidden reading, not a subtle implication buried in the text of the episode. A documented fact about how a recurring character who had appeared in the show since its earliest seasons was removed from the world of the show because of a contract dispute over airplane tickets. The episode is called Alone Again Natura Diddly. It is season 11, episode 14. It aired February 13th, 2000. Maude Flanders, Ned's wife and the mother of Rod and Todd, dies when Homer ducks away from a t-shirt cannon at a racing event, and the shirts hit Maude instead, knocking her off the back of the bleachers and onto the ground below. She does not survive. This is how Maude Flanders leaves the show. Not in a moment of dramatic wait, not at the end of a story that built toward her absence. She is standing behind Homer, the cannon fires, Homer moves, and she falls. The mechanism of her death is a piece of promotional merchandise shot from a pneumatic cannon at a sporting event because Homer wanted the free shirt. The real reason she dies is that voice actress Maggie Roswell, who had provided Maude's voice since the show began, lived in Denver, Colorado. The Simpsons records in Los Angeles. Roswell had been flying between the two cities for years to record her lines. She asked Fox to cover her travel costs. Fox refused. Roswell left the show. The producers decided to kill the character rather than recast the voice or write her out in a different way. Maggie Roswell was later rehired. She came back to the show. But Maude stayed dead. The decision to kill her was not reversed when the reason for killing her was resolved. She remained gone because the show had already built Ned's grief arc and did not want to undo it. Ned Flanders loses his wife, his children lose their mother, and an entire emotional storyline is built on top of a foundation of a billing dispute that was eventually settled in the actress's favor, at which point the character was already buried and the show had moved on. Here is what the episode itself actually does, separate from the circumstances around it. Ned is devastated. The episode does not play his grief for comedy. It sits with it. Ned's wife of many years is gone without warning in a random and meaningless way, and the show gives him space to be destroyed by this. The jokes in the episode come from the surrounding characters and situations, not from Ned himself. Ned is allowed to be genuinely sad in a way the show rarely allowed its supporting characters to be. Homer feels responsible. He should feel responsible because he moved out of the way of the cannon and the shirts hit Maude instead. The episode does not fully hold Homer accountable for this in any lasting way, but it acknowledges the connection. Homer's reflexive self-preservation, his automatic instinct to step aside and let whatever was coming hit something else, is what starts the chain. It is a smaller version of the same pattern the show has been building around Homer for years. The harm Homer causes is almost never intentional. It is almost always the result of Homer doing the thing that is easiest for Homer in the moment, without thinking about what that means for whoever is standing behind him. Maude was standing behind him. The fan theory about Maude, which exists and has been documented across fan sites, is that certain earlier episodes contain signs she was unhappy in her marriage to Ned. In several episodes involving physical danger, Maude either leaves Ned in a risky situation or shows no visible concern when he is in trouble. The imprint of her body on their shared bed, visible in the background of one scene, faces away from Ned's side, suggesting she spent her nights turned away from her husband. These details exist in the episodes. Whether they were intentional choices by the writers or coincidental background details that fans have retrospectively turned into a theory is impossible to confirm. The show never addressed them directly, but they are there, and once you know they are there, they sit in the back of your mind during the scenes where Ned mourns. What makes Season 11's dark theory different from every other season in this list is that it operates on two levels simultaneously, and the two levels do not fit comfortably together. Inside the show, Maude's death is a genuine tragedy. Ned loved his wife. His grief is real within the story. The subsequent episodes that deal with his loss and his eventual attempts to move on are among the more emotionally honest things the show produced in its later seasons. The death meant something to the characters and to many in the audience. Outside the show, Maude's death is a business decision. A voice actress asked for travel reimbursement. The studio declined. She left. The character was killed. The actress came back. The character did not. These two things are both true at the same time. The grief is real, and the cause of the grief is a contract negotiation. Ned's pain is genuine, and the reason for his pain is an airplane ticket. Rod and Todd grow up without their mother in the world of the show, and the reason they grow up without their mother is that Fox would not cover the cost of flights from Denver to Los Angeles. The show did not tell the audience this. The audience found out later through interviews and reporting on the production. By the time most people knew the real story, Ned had already spent multiple episodes grieving, had already started dating again, had already built a life around Maude's absence. The architecture of his loss was constructed before the audience understood what had actually caused it. This is the specific cruelty of Season 11's dark theory. It is not about what the characters did to each other. It is about what the production did to its own story. Every other season in this list has a dark reading that lives inside the text of the show, in what the episodes actually show and what the characters actually do. Season 11 has a dark reading that lives outside the text, in the gap between what the audience sees on screen and what they know happened off of it. Ned stands at the grave. His grief is written carefully. The scene works. And behind the scene, invisible and unacknowledged, is the real reason he is standing there. A t-shirt cannon fired. Homer moved. Maude fell. Fox would not pay for the flights. __quote _10__, Season 11 took something real and meaningful and placed it on top of a reason that had nothing to do with the story. Season 12 goes somewhere even more specific and even more final. It gives Homer the chance to be genuinely intelligent, to connect with his daughter in the way she has always needed, to be the father Lisa has spent 11 seasons quietly waiting for. And then it shows exactly what Homer does when that chance arrives. Section 12, Season 12. The Father Who Chose to Forget. There is a scene in Season 12 where Homer Simpson reads a letter his daughter wrote him, a letter in which she tells him that, even though the world is unfair to smart people, she hopes he will stay the way he is now so they can have more time like this together. He reads it. He takes it in. He sets it down on the kitchen table. Then he goes to Dr. Nick and asks him to put the crayon back in his brain. The letter stays on the table. He does not take it with him. He does not throw it away. He just leaves it there and walks out the door. And the next time we see Homer, he is laughing at something on television, and the intelligence is gone, and Lisa is still Lisa, and the brief window in which her father could actually reach her has closed. He chose to close it. The episode is called Homa. It is Season 12, Episode 9. It aired December 10th, 2000. It is the episode that answers, definitively and without any room for argument, the question of whether Homer Simpson is stupid because of circumstances or because of choice. The answer the episode gives is both, and the way it gives that answer is one of the most quietly devastating things the show ever did. Here is what the episode establishes from the beginning. Homer has always been the way he is. Slow, careless, easily distracted, unable to hold complex thoughts for very long, content with the simplest version of any situation. The show has treated this as his baseline, the fixed point around which everything else moves. In Season 8, the Frank Grimes episode showed what happens when someone looks at Homer's life and cannot understand why a man like that has what he has. The show never answered the question that episode asked. Season 12 answers it. Homer, during a medical examination, is found to have a crayon lodged deep in his brain. It has been there since childhood. There is a flashback showing young Homer surrounded by crayons, pushing one up his nose. The crayon went in and never came out. It has been sitting against the part of his brain responsible for higher thinking for his entire adult life, physically blocking him from operating at the level his brain would otherwise allow. Dr. Nick removes the crayon. It is a simple procedure. Homer wakes up. Something is different. He notices things. His thinking is faster and clearer and more connected. He reads books. He has actual opinions about them. He writes a detailed report on safety violations at the Springfield Nuclear Power Plant, the place where he has worked for years, while routinely ignoring the very violations he is now documenting. The report is accurate. It leads to the plant being shut down pending inspection. Homer did this. The man who almost drank a beaker of acid in Season 8 because he could not tell it from a soda wrote a safety report that passed professional review. He connects with Lisa. This is the center of the episode and the reason it still matters. Lisa Simpson has spent 12 seasons being the smartest person in a family that does not know what to do with her. She reads, she plays saxophone, she thinks about things carefully and wants to talk about them. Her father loves her, genuinely, in the imprecise and warm way Homer loves his children, but he has never been able to meet her where she lives. He cannot follow her there. He has always been on the other side of a gap that neither of them could close. With the crayon removed, Homer crosses the gap. He and Lisa talk. Real conversations about real things. The kind of conversations Lisa has been having alone inside her own head for her entire childhood. Homer can follow the thought. Homer can build on it. Homer can be in the room with her in the way she has always needed someone to be in the room with her. Lisa is so happy it is almost painful to watch. Then the rest of Homer's life starts to respond to the change. Barney does not know what to do with intelligent Homer. Their friendship, built on shared laziness and a mutual appreciation for things that do not require effort, has no foundation once Homer can see those things clearly. Lenny and Carl find intelligent Homer uncomfortable. The version of Homer they know and like and have built their friendship around is not this person. This person notices things they would rather not have noticed. This person says things out loud that used to stay unsaid because Homer could not formulate them. Moe's bar is not fun anymore. Homer sits at the counter and the conversation does not land the way it used to because Homer is now operating at a different level than everyone around him, and that gap is not comfortable for anyone on either side of it. Homer is alone in a way he has never been before. He has gained something significant and lost the entire social world that his previous self had built over decades. The intelligence came with a cost that nobody told him about because nobody knew what it would look like until it was happening. He goes to Lisa. He tells her what is happening. She listens. She understands completely because she has been living this her entire life. She is 8 years old and she has already learned what it costs to be the smart one in a world that finds smart people inconvenient. She has been paying that cost alone since the show began. Now her father is paying it too, and he came to her because she is the only person in his life who understands. They have a conversation that is one of the most honest exchanges in the show's later years. Homer is in real pain. Lisa sees it. She does not minimize it. She knows what it is. Then Homer makes his decision. He finds Dr. Nick. He asks for the crayon to be reinserted. He wants to go back. The social world, the easy laughter, the comfort of Mose and Barney and Lenny and Carl. He wants those things more than he wants the intelligence. He wants them more than he wants the version of himself that can actually talk to Lisa. Before he does it, Lisa writes him the letter. She tells him that she hopes he will stay. She tells him that she knows the world is not fair to smart people. She tells him that she is glad they had the time they had. She tells him she hopes for more. He reads it. He leaves it on the table. He goes to Dr. Nick. The crayon goes back in. Homer laughs at the television. Lisa finds the letter later. She reads it. She knows what it means. The episode ends. There is no dramatic confrontation. Lisa does not cry in front of him. Homer does not explain himself to her. The letter sits on the table, and then Lisa has it, and then the episode is over, and the show moves on to the next week's story, as it always does. But the letter on the table is the thing that does not go away. Homer read it. He understood it. The intelligent version of Homer, the one who could follow Lisa's thoughts and meet her where she lived, read his daughter's words and understood them, and then made the choice anyway. This was not the old Homer making a careless decision out of ignorance. This was a Homer who could see exactly what he was giving up, who read clearly and precisely the letter his daughter wrote about wanting more time with this version of him, and who decided that the television and the bar and the easy friendships were worth more than staying. He knew what Lisa needed. He knew he could give it to her. He chose not to. The show never reverses this. The crayon does not come out again. The intelligence does not return. Homer goes back to the couch and stays there. Lisa goes back to being alone in her family, the way she has always been, except now there is a closed door where there was briefly an open one, and both of them know the door is there and know it is closed, and neither of them talks about it. The letter is the proof that Homer knew. He could not claim he did not understand what he was walking away from. He read the words, he set them down, he left. 12 seasons, 12 moments where the Simpsons looked at the family at the center of its story and the town surrounding them and told the truth about what was actually happening underneath the jokes and the yellow skin and the reset button. A criminal who got away in season 1. A father who forgot in season 2. A clown who never stopped apologizing in season 3. A countdown hidden in a joke in season 4. A man who kept getting up in season 5. A son that got stolen in season 6. A soul sold for $5 in season 7. A righteous man destroyed for being right in season 8. A lie made into law in season 9. A son who ran from an operating room in season 10. A death caused by an airplane ticket in season 11. And a father who read his daughter's letter, understood every word, and put the crayon back in anyway in season 12. The show kept resetting. Springfield kept going. The couch was always there. But the dark thing that each season planted in the ground never left. It just stayed there, under everything. The way a crayon stays in a brain, quiet and invisible, and changing everything it touches without anyone noticing until someone finally looks. If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.